For a long time now, I've been under the belief that so long as the story has good characters, the story itself doesn't necessarily need to be groundbreaking. As long as those characters were fleshed out and relatable to some degree, they could, in theory, carry even a mediocre story. And if my YouTube channel is any indication, I genuinely think this applies to Genshin Impact, as well as the other Hoyoverse games. And it comes to, well, no surprise. In order to turn a profit, they have to create unique and compelling characters so that you, the player, are more incentivized to spend money on a character you connect with. Whether that's through the character's design, their voice, or their attitude, all these things have been brought together by the company to give you the best possible experience. However, that's also the reason they've shifted away from one particular subject for some time now: death. Yes, I see the glaring elephant in the room, that being Senora, but I don't think she counts. I'm specifically talking about the playable characters of these Hoyoverse games. Now, to be fair, she could come back, who knows? Yep, I'm still huffing that copium. You want me to talk about Himiko? Why? She seems fine, she's still making coffee on the Astral Express. Oh, you want me to talk about that Himiko? Alright. I suppose I should mention, the one time Hoyoverse did kill off a character. Murata Himiko is a secondary character in one of Hoyoverse's oldest games, Honkai Impact III. She's a mentor figure to a few of the characters, including the protagonist, Kiana, who, during a portion of the story, fell victim to cells called Siren. Siren intends to use Kiana to wreak havoc on the world. Himiko ends up taking action and foregoing her retirement. Yes, she was close to retirement. What a death flag. This retirement involved taking a serum that would extract the Honkai cells in her body. Instead, she gives it to Kiana. And sadly, with the last of her strength all used up from the new suit, Himiko dies in the arms of her student. Now, I haven't played Honkai Impact III, but yet I knew about this scene. I think quite a few people knew about this scene. It's powerful. Killing off a beloved character is a risky move indeed, but if done correctly, it can create a moment that you'll never forget. So, what about Genshin Impact? Well, let's begin with our favorite librarian, Lisa. Lisa is a character that may not seem all that interesting at first, but once you peel back the layers that reside within her character's dialogue, you may find something more. From an early age, Lisa was very inquisitive and curious. This ultimately brought her to the academia in Sumeru, but at some point she ultimately decided to leave and never return, at least for a while. One of the many theories floating around is that while she was there, Lisa obtained forbidden knowledge. As a result, her lifespan was cut short. It's even suggested that this story is linked to her constellation, Tempest Fugit, which loosely translates to time flies. And in the constellation itself, it's depicted visually as an hourglass, possibly depicting the sands of time running out for Lisa. Although this is just a theory at the end of the day and nothing more.
Fate is called as such, for it cannot be changed, nor can it be reversed. It can only but be accepted.
Now let's shift our attention to another character entirely, but one that I'm sure the player base knows quite well. Xiao is one of the oldest characters in Genshin Impact, and I don't mean he's really old age-wise. I mean he is. I just mean he's one of the earliest playable characters in the game. I often compare Xiao to your typical anime tsundere. Due to his work of killing off abyssal creatures and the like, he tends to avoid human contact. As a result of this, people on the outside looking in, at first glance, tend to fear him, but he's actually a kind person at heart. Xiao has actually been through a lot. Early on in his life, Xiao was imprisoned and in the service to another god during the Archon War. Eventually, this servitude would come to an end when Zhongli as Morax defeated this god and set free Xiao. Unfortunately, the tragedy wouldn't end for Xiao, as he would end up joining the ranks of the Yaksha, who would eventually end up killing themselves, as they were driven to madness by their karmic debt. This would leave Xiao alone with hardly any company, as even his fellow Adeptus rarely decide to spend time with him. And even Xiao himself is slowly succumbing to the madness due to his own karmic debt. In fact, he would most likely have perished long ago if it wasn't from a song that he heard from Venti that had calmed him down. With all this information now, you might think that he's got quite a few death flags circling him, so it's only natural to assume that the game might kill him off. I'm not so sure. In the 2.7 story event, Hidden Dreams in the Depths, the Traveler and Paimon visits the chasm once again. After running into some old friends as well as some new ones, the Traveler and the others fall into the abyss within the chasm and become trapped. Coincidentally, the group also ends up running into Xiao along the way, who is looking for the remains of his former Yaksha partner, Bosacius. As mentioned before, the Yaksha had ended up taking their own lives. However, Bosacius was the only one unaccounted for, and it had been believed he died long ago, but he was never found. As it turns out, he made a choice to seal himself along with another named Boyang, to keep the monsters from wreaking havoc in Liyue. After miraculously finding a way out,
We are being hunted by a malicious force of darkness that intends to keep us in the chasm forever.
in an attempt to save his friends, Xiao sacrifices himself and uses the last of his energy to ascend them to the surface. It seems he's remembering his old friends as he falls into oblivion. And at this moment, I genuinely thought that I was going to pull for Xiao when his banner returned.
Because I honestly thought I was going to miss his character.
That his story would have touched me in some way. But then it was immediately snatched away when Zhongli decided to save him. With the literal power of God, Xiao survives. In my personal opinion, this completely undermines his sacrifice, and moving forward ruins this part of the story. But I suppose I could forgive it if it was this one-time thing. Why am I not surprised? Hu Tao, as well as Xiao, are the two characters within the game that are surrounded by the concept of death. These two might as well be waving around death flags like they were American patriots on the 4th of July.
But yet, for some reason, Hoyoverse doesn't want to kill off these characters.
In the latest Lantern Rite, the story itself sets itself up perfectly for Hu Tao's sacrifice. From expanding her backstory to her resolve towards the climax, everything was set up for her fall. But it didn't happen. And the harsh truth is, we all know the reason why. They're too afraid. Genshin Impact, as well as other Hoyoverse games, view their characters as assets and not characters within a story. They're banking on us, the player, to become attached to these characters so we pay for them. As a result, they're too afraid to kill off anybody. The backlash from the community would be immense, and it could potentially hurt their bottom line. And whether or not we'd like to admit this, Hoyoverse does get money back from reruns of older characters. And so of course Hu Tao and Xiao are no exception to this, as they've had in multiple reruns. So maybe in Hoyoverse's mind, they can still get use out of these characters. But I think differently. Spoilers for Naruto Shippuden incoming. In Naruto, there are quite a few characters who have died throughout the franchise. For example, Asuma Sarutobi. If you were to ask any Naruto fan about Asuma prior to his death, they would sound unimpressed, because Asuma is nothing more than a side character. Now granted, he had a few cool moments here and there as the teacher of Team 10, but his role in the story was insignificant until his death. Asuma's death changed the narrative from that point on. Not only did his death affect the fans, but it also affected the characters in the story that were close to him. He changed those characters moving forward, and they were never quite the same again. But that's what death can do in a story if you do it right. It changes the status quo. In Genshin, Xiao's death could have meant something for characters like Ganyu or Zhongli. Hu Tao's death could have impacted characters like Xiangling, Chongyun, and even Chi-Chi. Character deaths also add stakes to the story. If nobody dies but they're constantly under the threat of death, then how can we take it seriously? And this most definitely extends to HSR. How many times did they attempt to kill off a character only for that character to not die? Yeah, it was all a dream. Okay, I get that. But that doesn't excuse them from framing these situations as these characters who might die. The way these characters talk, from the way the music swells, and the scene plays out, it makes you think that they're going to kill them off. But then they don't, and then you remember it's a dream, and so why does any of this matter in the first place? But then that also applies to Jiaoqiu on the Law Fu, and that wasn't even a dream. So even out of the dream, they'll still do it. I understand it's part of their business model to sell these characters. There's no denying that. But if they're going to keep releasing new characters, what's wrong with killing off a few old ones? Because once that happens, it raises the stakes in the story, as I've said before. before, but it can also deepen your connections with certain characters. Maybe you didn't like a character before, but their sacrifice changed your opinion of them. Or maybe you like them a whole lot, and their deaths impact you more than somebody who casually enjoys the character. These are methods that can also cause people to spend more money. But those are just my thoughts. Maybe when Himiko initially got killed, there was too much backlash, and so they haven't gotten back to it. Killing characters, I mean. Or maybe it's the Chinese government holding them back. I can't say for certain. But what I do know is that it negatively affects this game, as well as others, in a way that it feels like no character can really die. Which is fine if you want to do that, but if you tease character deaths from here on out, nobody's going to take them seriously. And that's why Hoyoverse should kill off its characters. Hey guys, I'm on the road to 10k subs this summer. Help me out by hitting that subscribe button. And if you enjoyed the video, leave a like.